Welcome to the Ask Lee segment of my channel, and if you have any questions regarding magic, spirituality, witchcraft, demonology, the occult, whatever it may be, then all you have to do is drop it into the comments of any of the Ask Lee videos and I will add it to the queue. And I do these every Wednesday, so just look out for your questions. Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Alright, before I start today's questions, I just want to do a correction. Last week I spoke about the lower, middle and upper world, and I related something which Kai had spoken about to me. Now I did misinterpret that or misunderstand it, or I didn't hear properly. I thought that it was in reference to a heathen worldview. It's not. I have been corrected. It was in a traditional witchcraft worldview. So just wanted to make a correction there. This idea of the upper world being beyond our perception, and therefore we don't work with the upper world, is actually a traditional witchcraft worldview, not a heathen worldview. Right, so just a correction there. If you haven't been following my channel for a while and you don't know who I'm talking about in reference to Kai, Kai and I did a lot of lives. We do it every Friday. We did do it as the Black Hat Chat on this particular channel, and then at the beginning of this year we broke off into its own separate channel, into the Wildwood. I will put a link up here for you to go and check that out. We're trying to build the audience there, so if you are interested in paganism, witchcraft, traditional witchcraft, heathenism, and those areas, please go and sign up on the Into the Wildwood YouTube channel. We do have a show every Friday. We try and do a live show every Friday, so you can join in the live chat and ask your questions and comments, make your comments and say hello. Just say hello if you want to. But load shedding on my side does kind of interrupt that sometimes. So when I have load shedding, we put up a pre-recorded show. So there is something every single Friday at least. Alright, so if you are interested in that, definitely go over to Into the Wildwood and subscribe there. We'd love to see you. Alright, so let's get on to the questions. Okay, straight into questions. Alright, so the first one is from Poppamies. Gnosis versus Trance. Are they the same thing or different? What are your preferred ways to enter Trance? Okay, Gnosis versus Trance. Are they the same or different? Yes and no. Okay, so trance work, don't think we really need to discuss what trance work is, but to put into a nutshell, it is entering a state, or entering an altered state of consciousness, and this is usually entered through one-pointed focus, or we could say one-pointed focus is attained through trance, depending on which way you go and how you view it. Now, Gnosis is a Greek word, and it means knowledge. So if we look into Gnosticism itself, it refers to the knowledge of the spiritual aspect and of humanity and the divinity within humanity. So when we talk about Gnosis, we're usually talking about spiritual knowledge. When we go into a trance state, we may go on a journey and we bring back Gnosis, we bring back knowledge. Or we may refer or talk about Lucifer bringing Gnosis. In this case, it is the spiritual knowledge that Lucifer brings to us, illuminates our path. He is the light bearer, and the light is the knowledge, it's the Gnosis. So Gnosis usually refers to knowledge itself. So in that aspect, Gnosis and Trance are not directly the same. We could say that through a trance state we reach a state which we are able to access Gnosis, so they can be related in that way. But now what we find in chaos magic is that they speak of Gnosis or a Gnostic state or a Gnostic trance in the same idea or terms as being a trance state. So in chaos magic, Gnosis or a Gnostic state is entering that altered state of consciousness. It's believed that magic is done by bypassing the conscious mind. So we bypass the conscious mind and go directly into the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is where we find Gnosis, we find knowledge. So we have a relationship there. But yeah, in chaos magic, Gnosis or Gnostic state is entering an altered state. So it is going into trance. So that does get a bit confusing, in reference to Gnosis being spiritual knowledge, but also Gnosis being a trance state, whereby, entering trance, we reach Gnosis, we reach that knowledge, whereas on the other hand, we have the term Gnosis or Gnostic state being referred to the actual trance state, being referred to the altered state of consciousness. So we do have that slight confusion there, but they do relate, they have a relationship. What are my preferred ways to enter trance? I like breathwork, meditation and breathwork. I can sit down and I use one-pointed focus, and I use breathwork in order to take myself down inward into the inner temple. That is definitely my preferred method. Other things I like to use are drumming. I've used a metronome, and I use the metronome. There's apps you can actually get on your phone which are metronomes, and you can change the speed of it. So if you change the speed of the metronome to meet the beats per minute of shamanic drumming, it gets quite interesting. Binaural beats, I actually created binaural beats. It's a pure tone, absolute pure tone, but I created it with the solfeggio frequencies, the different ones, and I made it into 4 Hertz if I remember correctly, so it's a theta wave. That works pretty good as well. But really anything which takes you into that inner temple. And the main reason I actually use drumming or the solfeggio frequencies with the theta wave or binaural beats or anything like that is to block out outside noises. But you will find that when you actually do meditation and breath work and you reach that one-pointed focus and you go into that trance state, that the outside noises and distractions disappear anyway. That's why it's one-pointed focus or hyper-focus. But that really is my favorite method. I don't like dancing because I'm not a dancer. I trip over my own feet, so it doesn't work very well. I do use singing, usually spontaneous singing, which, if you go through my channel, you're going to come across me doing spontaneous singing, especially in the healing half hour that I used to do. That definitely helps me get into a trance state. So, using chants, mantras and things like that, also very good for me. But yeah, those are my main methods. It's usually, I can actually relate this to either breathwork or sound. So sound in relation to the spontaneous singing, to drumming. I've used clacking before. Clacking is when you take 2 stones and you clack them together in a repetitive sound. Using a rattle. The sound-based things that have a repetitive pattern to them, they definitely help to bring me into trance. So it really is breathwork and sound. Those are my preferred methods. Alright, so that I think answers that question. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, this is quite a long one from Nea Night. I've been researching how it came to be that the names Satan and Lucifer are kind of used interchangeably for the devil, and sometimes even Beelzebub, or apparently Leviathan also, is used when people talk about the entity they call the devil. They are all separate demons, but somehow get mashed together by a lot of people who are not into demonology or demonology, especially Satan, Lucifer, and Beelzebub. I've found different contradicting stories and answers to this, so I wondered what your take on this is. Unless you already made a video about that, which I haven't seen yet. Would be cool to know. Hope you're having a great week. Hope you're having a great week. I think I've done various videos talking about this here and there, but it's always worth repeating. So when we talk about the devil, we have two devils that we talk about. Just as the theological devil, which is in relation to what the Christians think of the devil, and then we have the folkloric devil, which is the folklore, the witchcraft devil, the horned man. So when Satan and Lucifer and Beelzebub and Leviathan and all of them really get mixed up as being the devil, but mostly Satan and Lucifer. When a Christian talks about the devil, or we find old tales about the devil, it's usually in relation to Satan and Lucifer. I'm not even going to say or Lucifer, because they do lump them together as being the same thing. But at the same time, Christians lump everything which is not God into this idea of the devil or Satan. So, Beelzebub, Leviathan, all of the demons, they would consider to be the devil. It's just different names. They think that it's just different names, or maybe different aspects of this one entity, this one being, which is the devil or Satan. Now, when it comes to Satan and Lucifer, I do consider them to be totally separate entities, so totally separate beings. But some Satanists, demonolators included, will put them together as being the same one. In fact, I'm reading Martin McGregor's book at the moment, which I'll do a review at the end of next month, at the end of July. It's this month, July. It's Book of the Fallen, a great book. I'm really enjoying it, I must say. But now you have to bear in mind that some people, not everybody's going to do the same things I do. They're not going to believe the same I do, and that's fine. That's absolutely perfectly fine. It's what makes us very interesting. But in his book, he actually talks about Lucifer and Satan being the same entity, in that Lucifer fell from heaven and was the light bringer, the light bearer that brought the light to earth. But in that fall became Satan the adversary. So even within Satanism, within demonology, some will consider Satan and Lucifer to be the same entity. So it really boils down to personal experience and personal belief and your own personal worldview. Martin McGregor has a completely different worldview to what I do. It doesn't mean he's wrong, it doesn't mean I'm wrong. It just means that we are different, and we have a different view, a different perspective, different understanding of things. So you have to remember that everybody has a different worldview, and everybody has a different experience and a different understanding and a different perspective on all of these things. So whether somebody considers Satan and Lucifer to be the same entity, or whether somebody else considers them to be completely separate, or they don't believe that there is a Satan or a Lucifer, that's just their own personal worldview. It doesn't mean any of them are wrong. I will say that the Christian idea that they are all of the demons, all of the entities, all of the gods and goddesses of all pantheons are the devil, that's probably wrong. But, all of these different worldviews and perspectives within the magical occult practices, they're just all different, different ways of experiencing things. So, don't get too hung up about it. Read all of the different worldviews and perspectives. Read all of them. Learn from all of them. And then make up your own mind. Construct your own worldview. That's really what we're doing, is constructing our own worldviews and what speaks to us and what fits with us. So, learn from all of them and then decide for yourself, really. I think that goes through everything there. Yeah, okay. So the next question, if my device will work, there we go. From Godkingcthulu, which, if any, sources, grimoires, etc., contain ways to work with Shamyaza and the Grigori? Okay, this one's a difficult one because I'm still trying to find them myself. I could say go straight to the Book of Enoch, but it's not really showing you how to work with them. What you can do, and what I've found useful, is to go into a lot of traditional witchcraft sources. The Pillars of Tubal Cain by Nigel Jackson. Just trying to remember if I've got the correct book. Yeah, it was the Pillars of Tubal Cain. That goes a lot into the Grigori, and also analyzes the spirits from different worldviews, from different religions and traditions. But it does go a lot into the Grigori. It goes into a lot into Azazel / Shamyaza, and Lucifer, and etc. etc. But what you'll find is there's a lot of traditional witches who incorporate the Grigori into their practice. They consider Azazel to have been, or Tubal Cain to have been the avatar of Azazel, and there's a lot of traditional witches which do incorporate the Grigori. Not all of them. And when we speak specifically about Shamyaza, you have to also remember that Shamyaza is also Azazel. I think I've seen some people suggest that they are separate, but you'll probably find that the majority of lore suggests that they are the same being, and the name often gets incorporated together. The two names get incorporated together into one name. What is quite interesting, and also, if I remember correctly, Andrew Chumley's work from Sabbatic Craft, that also goes a lot into Azazel. So there is a large focus on Azazel Shamyaza. Not specifically all of the Grigori, but definitely the Azazel Shamyaza connection, and Azazel himself as being the blacksmith god, as being associated with Tubal Cain, and such things. All right, so probably at this point in my journey anyway, I can suggest going the traditional witchcraft route, and having a look for them. Not all traditional witches follow this route, so you're going to have to pick and choose and really delve in there and find out what the sources that you can actually pick up on. But I would definitely recommend Nigel Jackson, and have a look into Sabbatic Craft, which was Andrew Chumley and now David Shulk. Sorry, not David, Daniel Shulk. And yeah, that's probably your easiest sources at this point anyway. Okay, 31. This is from, I'm going to pronounce this wrong because I think it's supposed to be Russian, BONK. Yeah, I'm obviously going to be pronouncing that wrong. I don't know how to speak Russian. I'm sorry about that. Haley, I have a question for you. Since pantheons are just our way of classifying spirits and deities because of culture, but of course they all have different aspects, how would you go about differentiating certain spirits? I have a suspicion that a goddess from one culture is a different aspect from another culture. Again, comes down to your own personal worldview, whether you're hard polytheistic, soft polytheistic, pantheistic, whatever. All have different approaches to this. Let me just check that again, since pantheons are just our way of classifying spirits and deities. The difficulty here is that we often go about this by saying that a certain god or goddess from one pantheon is the same as another god and goddess from a different pantheon. And it's not always the case. They may seem similar. Somebody asked me in the comments recently about the connection with Astarte and Venus / Aphrodite. And this is probably a good example. So Venus and Aphrodite, the Roman and the Greek goddess of love and sex and fertility, that often gets related to the Astarte, Ishtar, Inanna complex. I would not say they are the same. A lot of people will say they are, but I personally would not say they are the same. We've had Inanna from the Sumerian, which developed into Ishtar with the Babylonian, and then, or was it Babylonian? Akkadian / Babylonian, which then developed into Astarte. And then we have a relation to Astaroth, etc. Now, this is a goddess of love, sex, and fertility, but also war. And also law. So you've got more aspects to this particular goddess than you do with this other one. But because you have this relationship of love, sex, and fertility, then it gets equated as being the same. Not necessarily the case. It's a bit like a cow has 4 legs and a table has 4 legs, therefore a cow is a table. They're not. So we do need to be careful about this. You may find if you do start tracking 2 particular entities from 2 different pantheons right through history into its roots, you may find that they have a similar archetype. But it doesn't then mean that they are the same. So let's have a look at this from an ancestral point of view. My great-grandmother and great-grandfather had 2 children. They probably had more, but I'm just using this as an example. So they had 2 children. Those 2 children went off, married, had children of their own. Those children had children of their own, etc., 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 etc. So you get this family tree that starts happening. So then you come to me, and you come to a cousin, a distant related cousin. We can both trace our root back to the same great-grandparents, but it doesn't make us the same. So in this fashion, in this example that I'm trying to portray, what we could say is that if you have 2 gods that are the same, and take Pan and Kourninos, for example, from 2 different pantheons, but we can trace it back to the same archetype, but at some point they split off and they became 2 separate entities. They are similar, they are very, very similar, but it doesn't make them the same. It just gives them the same root that they came from, and we can probably trace back lots and lots of different gods and goddesses back to their own archetypes, but it doesn't make them the same. However, when we look at Venus and Aphrodite, we can probably say they are the same, because one culture just took the gods and goddesses out of another one and renamed them to suit themselves. So the whole, again, coming back to the Inanna, Ishtar, Astarte, it was the same goddess that just over thousands of years just developed, became, or got a different name, adopted a different name, but the same goddess. And at some point we could say that goddess became different, and maybe 2 groups of people worshipped the same goddess, but worshipped in 2 different fashions. So as the lines carried on, they continued, they split off, they became 2 different egregores, actually. But those egregores trace back to the same root goddess or god. So, you have all of these breaks and shifts and everything else. So we can't always say that one god or one goddess is the same as another god or goddess from a different pantheon. You may be able to trace them back to the same archetype, or it may be a split which created various egregores which you can trace back to the same entity. So, it gets quite convoluted, quite difficult, quite interesting to have a look into, but that's basically what we're considering there. And I think I'm going to leave today's there. Let me just check the next question. Yeah, the next question is going to take a bit of discussion, so I'm going to save that one for the beginning of next week. And I will see you next week then. Have a good one for now. Cheers, bye-bye.